Channel 24. Midnight news coming to you live from Algiers. And to the headlines. Vowing retaliation, Russia accused Ukraine of attempting to assassinate President Vladimir Putin in late-night drone attack on the Kremlin. In the Middle East, and during a Zionist raid on the Gaza Strip, 1 Palestinian killed and 5 others were injured at dawn on Wednesday. As UN humanitarian top official Martin Griffiths comes to Sudan, battle rages in the country 1 day after the warring sides agreed to 7-day ceasefire. Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune supervised on Wednesday at the International Conference Center a ceremony celebrating World Press Freedom Day. Hello again and welcome. I'm your host Abdelrahim Kashor, and those were today's top stories. Russia claimed it fought an attack by Ukrainian drones on Kremlin early Wednesday, calling it an unsuccessful assassination attempt against President Vladimir Putin. These accusations were denied by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, saying, "We do not attack Putin or Moscow." In the same line of thought, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said he can't at any way to validate Russia's report that Ukraine tried to assassinate Russian President Vladimir Putin in a drone attack. The White House said on Wednesday it was aware of report that Russia accused Ukraine of attacking the Kremlin with drones, yet it could not authenticate or confirm the allegations.
Good afternoon, everybody. So we are aware of the reports, but are unable to confirm the authenticity of them at this time. And so I don't want to get into speculation from here about what happened, but we are indeed aware of the reports.
2 rounds of talks are expected to be held on Friday in Istanbul and Moscow to discuss the Black Sea grain exports deal, with hopes from both sides to reach an agreement this time. Rob Leo.
The basic food security of tens of millions across the globe is hanging by a thread amid Russian dissatisfaction about unfulfilled demands and Western refusal to back up decisions. The deputy defense ministers of Russia, Ukraine and Turkey will meet in Istanbul on Friday, as another meeting between Moscow and the UN will be held in Russia the same day, in a bid to reach an agreement about a deal that allows the exports of Ukrainian grains on the Black Sea.
This initiative is very important for the countries in need of grains. It is very important for the regional peace and stability of the countries that are in need. We can say that both parties are looking warmly to an extension. We hope that this deal continues without any problems.
Turkish Defense Minister Hulusi showed optimism during his announcement about Friday's meeting. However, Russian Foreign Ministry has repeatedly signaled it will not allow the deal to be extended beyond May 18th unless the West removes obstacles to Russian grain and fertilizer exports.
Working contacts between the representatives of the parties Russia, Turkey, Ukraine, as well as the UN, at the Black Sea Grain Deal Joint Coordination Center in Istanbul are constantly ongoing, meaning this level of work is being constantly maintained. This is necessary to carry on inspections according to the procedural rules agreed upon.
Russia would continue talks with the UN and other parties to the Black Sea Grain Deal, the Kremlin said, adding that Moscow would not do anything to harm its own interests. During the second round of talks about the deal with the UN on Friday, Russia has repeatedly cast doubt on the renewal of the Turkish brokered grain deal, as long as Westerns refuse to back up their decisions about Moscow's demands.
Just now we have got it well prepared, a report on Russia claiming of the Kremlin attacked by Kiev. On this report, Nabil Khazini.
This is the exceptional moment when 2 drones penetrated the Russian thick defense layers to fall almost on the roofs of the Kremlin in the heart of Moscow. Russia says this was a Ukrainian attack on attempt in Vladimir Putin's life.
We consider these actions as a planned terrorist act and an attempt on the life of the President of Russia, carried out on the eve of the Victory Day, the parade on May 9, where foreign dignitaries are expected.
Shortly afterwards, the Russian presidency said Vladimir Putin was safe and released this footage of him on a usual working day. The Kremlin added that Russia reserves the right to take countermeasures when and where it sees fit. These accusations were denied by President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine. Kiev says it wasn't behind the dramatic attack.
We don't attack Putin or Moscow. We fight on our territory. We are defending our villages and cities. We don't have, enough weapons for this.
In Ukraine now, the question is how and when Russia will react and who will have to pay the price.
Anything is possible. As long as Ukraine does not officially confirm that this was an attack carried out by us, there can be many theories as to who did it.
Well, if they are not responsible for what happened, they could shell us with missiles again. We need to remain in safety and take care of ourselves and our close ones.
The Kremlin reported attempt occurred only 6 days before the Victory Day celebrations. Russia announced that the great military parade at the Red Square in Moscow would go well as planned despite the attack on the Kremlin.
Turkish Foreign Minister Shawish Mevlut Oglu has announced that the foreign ministers of Russia, Syria, Turkey and Iran will hold a meeting in Moscow next Wednesday. The meeting will discuss ways to reach normalization between Damascus and Ankara, as well as a number of files related to enhancing opportunities for the political settlement in Syria. Presidents of Iran and Syria on Wednesday signed a series of long-term cooperation agreements on oil and other sectors to bolster economic ties between the two allies. Iran's Ibrahim Raisi, leading a large economic and political delegation, met with his Syrian counterpart Bashar al-Assad after landing in the conflict-torn country for a 2-day visit, an Iranian president's first visit to Damascus since 2010. Syrian state media said Raisi and Assad signed agreements and memoranda of understanding related to several sectors, including oil, agriculture, railways, and free trade zones.
The memoranda of understanding signed and the numerous projects discussed will greatly advance relations through developing mechanisms to increase trade exchange and investments between the two countries. In addition, they will mitigate the impacts of sanctions, taking advantage of changes in the global economic map and the gradual transition of balance to the east.
We hope that the agreements signed between the two countries, especially in economic and commercial fields, where there is a good capacity in both countries, are implemented. And implementation of these agreements can definitely help upgrade the level of bilateral relations.
In the Middle East, a new round of Zionist raids on the Gaza Strip has left 1 Palestinian martyrs and several wounded. The aggression comes amidst news of regional mediation to stop the escalating violence.
Gaza spent the last hours under the fire of the new Zionist aggression as the occupation planes rained down missiles on the besieged strip. The attack did not stop until dawn, leaving behind a trail of destruction and a number of martyrs and wounded. Hati Mubarak, the son of martyr Hashil Mubarak, recounted the tragic incident.
We were sleeping at home, safe and sound, when we heard a giant explosion from a missile. A chunk of roof fell in the explosion. and the metal roof broke into shards and one sliced into the chest of my father. We took him to the hospital at midnight, and it was in that hospital that he died. He was martyred.
The occupation raids were met with bursts of resistant missiles, causing warning sirens to sound in the settlements. The shells penetrated the Iron Dome, which became unable to confront the resistance shells as the occupation forces could intercept only 4 missiles out of 22 fired from the strip. The Al-Quds Brigade responded to the Zionist aggression, stating that they have not started yet. The Joint Room of Palestinian resistance factions also claimed that ramming the settlements around the Gaza Strip with rockets is only a preliminary response to the assassination of a martyr Adnan Khadr. The Palestinian Foreign Ministry dubbed the aggression as war crimes and crimes against humanity, warning of international community silence in the face of these continuous violations. Meanwhile, Zionist extremists, including the so-called Minister of National Security in the occupation government Itamar Ben-Gvir, called for more destruction and dead Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. The religious Zionist party also expressed their desire for more demolished buildings and casualties in the Gaza Strip. However, news of regional mediation to stop the escalation has emerged amidst the ongoing attacks.
The United Nations urged for a thorough investigation into the death of Palestinian prisoner Khadr Adnan. UN Deputy Spokesman Farah Haq said during a press conference that it must be for the occupation authorities to ensure that the circumstances of Adnan's death are thoroughly investigated.
What I can say is that the Secretary General is following with concern the situation following the death of Khadr Adnan. Israeli authorities must ensure that the circumstances of his death are thoroughly investigated. The Secretary General reiterates his call on Israel to end the practice of administrative detention. All those held in administrative detention should be promptly charged and tried in a court of law or released without delay.
In Sudan, UN Aid Chief Martin Griffiths said he was working on obtaining commitments by the warring parties to protect humanitarian assistance to ensure it can be delivered to those in need, while UN Chief stated that fighting in Sudan needs to stop. Marim Zian.
Despite a new 7-day ceasefire, violent clashes, clouds of smoke and explosions were seen and heard today in and around Khartoum in an ongoing power struggle. Since April 15, deadly violence broke out in Sudan, leaving at least 550 people dead and over 4,900 injured. Deadly fighting has also displaced 334,000 people, while more than 100,000 fled to neighboring countries. Violence raises fears of a humanitarian crisis in the 45 million people country, with the top humanitarian official Martin Griffiths calling on warring parties to protect humanitarian assistance.
I've already started working on here today is to be sure that we have the commitments publicly and clearly given by the two militaries to protect humanitarian assistance, to deliver on the obligations to allow supplies of people to move, and that we should do that, and humanitarians universally do this. We're asking for the movement of humanitarian supplies and people. We do this in every other country.
Meanwhile, the envoy of Sudan's military leader Al-Burhan said the army accepted cooperation but only with allies. Aid deliveries have been held up, where about 1/3 had already relied on humanitarian assistance, and aid agencies need $1.5 billion of funds.
Aid must be allowed into Sudan, and we need secure and immediate access to be able to distribute it to people who need it most. I call on the international community to support the Sudanese people in their pursuit for peace and the return to democratic transition.
The current situation in the North African country ushers in a humanitarian catastrophe, with expected repercussions for the entire region.
Still in Sudan, the Sudanese Ministry of Health announced that the number of deaths and injuries caused by clashes between the army and the rapid support forces has risen to 500 50 deaths and more than 4,000 injuries in various provinces of the country. This comes as the World Health Organization warned that many people in Sudan may die due to the lack of basic services as well as disease outbreaks in the ongoing fighting between the military and the rapid support forces.
The UN Refugee Agency and partners have been scaling up relief efforts as border crossings from Sudan increase. UNHCR now estimates that so far, more than 100,000 refugees have fled to neighboring countries. Most have been Sudanese refugees arriving in Chad and Egypt, mostly women and children, as well as South Sudanese returnees. In Chad and Sudan, we're bringing in roughly 70,000 core relief items from our global stockpiles. And in Egypt, UNHCR and other UN agencies are conducting a mission to assess the needs of people coming from Sudan. The UN and Egyptian Red Crescent are delivering water, food, wheelchairs, and hygiene and sanitary kits to new arrivals. UNHCR plans to launch an interagency regional refugee response plan to address urgent financial needs as soon as possible.
Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune to provide a ceremony in honor of journalists on Wednesday at the International Conference Center Abdellatif Rahal on the occasion of World Press Freedom Day. The event was attended by about 400 journalists representing the electronic and written press, the audiovisual sector and agencies, in addition to media institutions, officials and the representatives of foreign press accredited in Algeria, as well as prominent media figures and names active in Algerian and foreign media, and in the presence of senior state officials. At the end of the ceremony, President Tebboune exchanged with journalists and congratulated them on this occasion. In the same line of thought, the Minister of Communication, Mohamed Bouslimani, delivered a speech in which he recalled the importance that President Abdelmajid Tebboune attached to this sensitive sector, pointing out to the challenges facing Algerian journalists and the future prospects of this profession.
In implementation of the commitments of the state under the leadership of the President of the Republic, we constantly work to ensure a relevant professional environment, consolidating the rights of journalists and citizens alike as part of the respect for the balance between freedom and responsibility. As a result of what was announced, the Algerian Parliament recently approved the organic law related to communication. This process will be completed with the presentation of other projects related to the sector of audiovisual, written press and electronic press.
In the same matter of media and press, the official kickoff of the new radio channel Africa FM was given on Wednesday here in Algiers, in the presence of the Minister of Communication, Mohamed Bouslimani, and the Director General of the Algerian Radio, Mohamed Baghali. In addition to the well-known media figures, the new radio channel director, Mohamed Sayem, indicated that the breed of this channel includes political and geopolitical programs and also deals with economic, cultural and artistic issues, as well as entertainment and news.
Africa
FM is a 100% African channel made by Africans for Africans. It's a channel that will speak to Africans. It's a space for debate and exchange. Africans will speak and listen to one another. It's a platform that will be made available to all Africans to raise their voice and to represent the colors and symbols of our dear continent. To this purpose, Africa FM team is made up of a variety of journalists from different African nationalities and cultures.
The official spokesman for the Algerian Foreign Ministry confirmed that Algeria is the only member of the Arab Maghreb Union that has never initiated a request to freeze the activities of the institutions, reversing the allegations of the outgoing Secretary General of the Arab Maghreb Union. The official spokesman pointed out that the outgoing Secretary General of the Arab Maghreb Union continues his media missteps, trying in vain to mislead Maghreb public opinion and falsify facts by holding Algeria responsible for the failure of the Maghreb construction, the only member of the Union that has previously ratified all the agreements concluded with the framework of the Maghreb Union. The Minister of Foreign Affairs and Cooperation, Najla Al-Mangoush, has started a working visit to Algeria, according to a statement by the Minister of Foreign Affairs and National Community Abroad. The visit comes as part of the strengthening Algerian-Libyan relations and cooperation between the two brotherly countries, in addition to intensively political consultations on issues of common interest. On this occasion, for Minister of Foreign Affairs and National Community Abroad, Ahmed Attaf held bilateral talks in private with his Libyan counterpart. The Algerian Minister of Foreign Affairs and Ahmed Attaf also received the ministry's headquarters the President of the National Assembly of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Jacob Modenda, who is on a working visit to Algeria. According to a statement by the Algerian Foreign Ministry, the meeting constituted an opportunity to review bilateral relations, mainly the common history of struggle against colonialism, solidarity, and exchange of support. The two sides also discussed ways and prospects for enhancing economic cooperation between the two countries by redoubling efforts and contributions of all actors, including legislative institutions. Also, still with the ministry matters, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and National Community Abroad, Ahmed Attaf, has received the President of the Shura Council of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Abdullah bin Mohammed bin Ibrahim al-Sheikh. During the meeting, the two sides discussed relations between Algeria and Saudi Arabia, as well as prospects for strengthening them in the context of preparation of the next deadlines, in addition to the efforts made to ensure the legal and institutional framework for bilateral cooperation in various fields. To a different matter now, the European Commission proposed on Wednesday new laws to strengthen the fight against corruption following the Morocco Gate scandal, which rocked the European Parliament and condemned some of its deputies and officials who received bribes from the Moroccan regime in exchange for reports in the favor that falsified the humanitarian and human rights situation inside the kingdom and in the occupied Sahrawi territories. European Commission Vice President for Values and Transparency, Vera Jourova, said that the scandal has greatly damaged the credibility of European institutions.
Very unpleasant and big blow to the credibility of all of us, because the people do not differentiate whether it's one political club in the European Parliament. They, of course, see European institutions as a whole. And so we have to do all that to try to convince people that we mean it, that we want to go more transparent, that we will go after the cases of problematic ethics, but also that we will encourage the law enforcement bodies to go after and investigate properly the corruption cases, which is in fact the core matter in this proposal.
Reports of a human rights organization advocating for freedom of press and expression expose the practices of the Makhzen regime and its violations against journalists in Morocco. According to the latest publications of these reports, freedom of the press in the kingdom was at the bottom of the world's ranking. This comes amid widening protests calling for an end to violations and escalating repression. Spanish regional parties in Aragon, along with the candidates, reiterated their support for the struggle of the Sahrawi people to achieve freedom and self-determination. During gatherings in preparation for the elections that will be held in Spain, the representative of the Polisario Front in Aragon, Yahya Mohammed al-Sheikh, accompanied by several members of the Sahrawi community in the region, participated in these gatherings at the invitation of the regional parties. Those parties, along with the candidates for the elections, also renewed their determination to support the struggle of the Sahrawi for independence to the end. Malian Foreign Minister Abdoulaye Diop affirmed that the war is the main reason behind the gross violation of human rights during a session in the Human Rights Council. The Malian Foreign Minister considered that Mali will continue its cooperation with the Human Rights Council, especially in regard to Mali's sovereignty. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you ever so much for being with us. For more updates, you can follow our social media platform. And all I can say at the end, take care of yourself and good night.